All right.
All right, so we are joined by licensed professional counselor, Dr. Brittany Jones, right here in Jackson. We thank you so much for joining us. We're in the Human Services Career Cluster, and I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you so much for being able to fit us in. I know you've been quite busy. We've been trying to do this for a while.
Yes, we have been. I'm glad I could be off today to come in and join you guys today.
All right. Now, before we talk about what you do and some real mental health issues, not only in the Black community but in all communities, tell us about your background. You know, you went to Hines Community College. You know, we have some kids that are say, I don't want to go to community college, but you're a proud alumni of Hines. And then, like me, you went to the University of Southern Mississippi, and take us from there because you had a pretty cool educational background.
Yeah, so I actually started my educational career. I wanted to major in biological science. So that's what I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to do something within the medical field. I actually had a soccer scholarship, so that's what led me to Hines. Once I finished there, I went to the University of Southern Mississippi, where I still majored in biological science. But my junior year, I said I don't want to do this anymore. And so my junior year, I changed my major to child and family studies with an emphasis in family relations, and that's kind of where I started my journey within mental health. And so after that, I went to Mississippi College, got my master's in marriage and family therapy. And from there, I got a doctorate in professional counseling. So, um, like most, we think that we want to do something, and then, once we get into the field, it's like, I don't want to do that. So, that's kind of my educational background.
Yeah, and one thing about LPC is there is a licensing requirement. There are hours involved, and it's different from state to state. So, take us through the Mississippi process because we may have some people that are interested in counseling, but it is a very matter of fact process that has to be followed to be licensed as a counselor in Mississippi.
Most definitely. And a lot of times, when you're in the field or just while you're in school, it's not talked about a lot. I didn't know the importance of getting my licensure until I had finished. And so the process is very strenuous. They've actually changed the requirements for the LPC. And so basically you have to take a test. You have to get licensure hours, and then you have to take another test to actually become licensed. So a lot of face-to-face internships face-to-face hours within your internship that you have to complete. You actually go into a site. My site was at an all boys group home. That's where I got majority of my hours. And then I also got some hours at a counseling center here. And so basically once you complete the test and get your hours, you become an LPC. But even to get your hours, it is a 2-year process.
Yeah, and I think that's important to notice to know because it's not just I'm gonna go to school and be a counselor. There is a process. Now it's not a insurmountable process, but it is a process. Now, one thing I like to talk about is the need for different types of skills and different types of people in this field. One thing, we'll have some first generation Americans that see this later. There's a huge need for bilingual counselors. There's a huge need for counselors that know sign language. There's a huge need for male counselors. I'm coming to find out. And obviously, there's a huge need for Black counselors. So, talking, with the mental health stigma changing in our country and in our state, more and more people are seeking mental health services. And I think it's important to state from the beginning that just because you seek mental health services does not mean you're crazy. It does not mean you're a danger to society. It does not mean that you are weird or, not like anybody else. But it is something that is important. And there are people like yourself that are trained here locally that are here to help. So talk about, the need for diversity and different skills and languages in this field, as well as what mental health services really is.
So let's start with what mental health services are, because we come into that a lot where we have a stigma of what mental health is. And so I get a lot of, I'm not crazy. I don't think I need to be here. I just, somebody told me I need to come and I'm just going to see what it's about. And so when we think about mental health, it's basically just how you think. It's how you respond to certain things. It's how you feel about certain things. It's how you think about certain things, your thoughts. And first part of what it is. And honestly, we all have times where our thoughts are probably just not what we want them to be, whether they be negative, whether we are sad, whether we're triggered by something. And so that's all mental health is. And so coming into the process of counseling, that's what we talk about. We talk about what's going on. And so a lot of times, too, people feel like, well, I have to go talk to a therapist if I've experienced some type of trauma. You know, if I've been abused, if I've been physically abused, if I have been sexually abused. And yes, we have those individuals who have experienced some type of abuse or some type of trauma in that manner. But, you know, I work with people who have phobias. I work with individuals who have lost a loved one. I work with individuals who just don't have it together and they just want to have a person that they can talk to outside of their family. And so with mental health becoming more vital to more communities, it is important that there's a cultural diverse piece there as well, because we have individuals within the Latin community. We have individuals who, you know, they come in and really don't know what the mental health concept is, and they
Yeah.
feel more comfortable talking to someone who looks like them, you know. They feel comfortable talking to someone who may have some of the same experiences. So, you know, even when I think about clients who I have assisted, even thinking about just minors, you know, or I think the youngest individual that I've worked with was probably 3. And so we think, well, what does a 3-year-old have to come to counseling for? Well, they had lost both parents. And so we had seen some behavioral changes in there. Of course, a 3-year-old is not going to have a conversation like a 13-year-old is going to have.
Yep.
So we do play therapy. So there are different interventions that we incorporate to help everyone. But there's still a challenge with being able to provide services for individuals who may come from.
Yeah, and that's important to note because you know, I always say there's not a single person alive that chose who their parents were. There's not anybody who chose what color they were. There's not anybody who chose kind of genetic issues that could happen to them. So, you know, things that are out of your control, it's okay to go and seek help about that and seek ways to get through that because you know it's important to know that it's not your fault. You know, I know a lot of the older rural crowd is like, you don't need to talk to them people, just you know, pray about it. You're not crazy. And I know that's going on a lot in several communities. And it's important for everybody to
Mhm.
understand that I don't care who you are, what color you are, what gender you are, you're going to deal with mental health crisis at some point in your life, whether it be
At some point in your life,
a loved one,
yes.
if people lose a spouse, people lose a parent, you know, it is a lot to deal with. So there are people like
Mm,
yourself that are here to help in those situations.
most definitely. And I'll just say as well, just I guess mental health didn't necessarily hit me. And I always tell my story because, you know, I'm an advocate for therapy. I'm an advocate for making sure that you're good so that you can make sure the people around you are good. And so my first instant with dealing with mental health was after I had my daughter and I dealt with postpartum depression really bad. And so thinking about, okay, well, you're a therapist, like, you know what to do. You know the concepts, you know what you need to talk about, you know what coping skills that you need to do. But until it hits you, it's a total different experience. And so, you know, I would have never thought that that was something that I would have dealt with, even being a professional. So it doesn't matter if you're a professional. It don't matter if you what your career path is. It don't matter if you in the streets, out the streets. None of that matters. When life starts life and it hits you, then you have to deal with it. And a lot of times we don't know which way to go. And so I have had the privilege to be in certain settings where I talk to teenagers and I talk to them on a where they are, just so that they understand that they have somebody out there that they can talk to, that can relate to them, that has probably experienced a lot of the same things that they've experienced, and understand that it's okay. Life is what it is, and so we have no control over it. So it's always good to have someone or somebody that you can have those or share those experiences with.
Yeah, and another good thing about counseling, you know, we had a nurse last week, and what they shared, and I think this is one thing where nursing and counseling are kind of hand in hand, because if you get burned out in a certain area, or it's too much for the trauma you experience as a therapist is too much for you, you can pivot and move into other areas. Once you have that license, there's a need across multiple counseling disciplines where you could be used to make a difference, and it's not as people work with different groups better than they do others. So it really, I don't want people to think I became a counselor for kids and it was too much. I can't be a counselor anymore. There's a huge need for counselors in other areas.
Most definitely. When I started, I only wanted to work with kids. Like, I only want to work with kids and teenagers. I don't want to work with any adults. I don't want to work with individuals who struggle with chemical dependency. I just want to work with kids. And so at that time I was working at State Hospital, and I had been out there for maybe about 7, 8 years. And there were some things going on where the therapist had to be transferred. And so I was transferred to a chemical dependency unit for females. And I'm like, I do not want to work, first of all, with females. And then I don't know, I don't want to work with substance abuse. Like, I don't want to do that. And so I found myself going in with just this thought process of, I'm not gonna be able to do this. But when I got in there, I noticed that they were big kids. And so you're right. A lot of times we have this idea of who we want to work with or what we don't want to do. And once we're placed in a position that we have that's out of our control, we find out, okay, I could do this. This is a population that I can work with. And even just with the field of counseling, I mean, with counseling and social work or anything of that nature, you don't necessarily have to just be a therapist. You can be, you can be a spokesperson. You can do trainings. You can be a teacher. You can be a professor. So even within the field of therapy, it's a wide range of things that you can do.
Absolutely. Well, because this is such a question oriented field, I do have some questions I want to get to, and I'll get to as many of these as I can. And some of these
Okay.
are really good. So I'm glad they're thinking about this type stuff. This person is Marquise Newell. He's a member of our band here in ninth grade, and most of these are ninth graders. He asked, what do you consider your top 3 strengths as a therapist?
Ooh, top 3 strengths. I'll say when I first started, I would say that listening was probably my top one, and I guess that would kind of go into the same one. Being empathetic. So a lot of times with therapists that I work with, so I have therapists that I see as clients. Being empathetic, but not having sympathy, and then also just being able to build a rapport. I think my biggest strength is being able to build a rapport. I'm going to meet my clients where they are. I'm not going to tell them what they need to know, or I'm not going to tell them who they are, because you better than anybody else. And so my job is to just be there and to support you in the direction that it is that you need to go. So listening, building a rapport, and being empathetic.
Absolutely. Now this is a good question here. This is Jameer Mayfield, and he asked, if you
Okay.
had a person, if you have a person that does not want to talk, what do you do?
I sit there and look at them. I sit there and look at them. Because again, my job is to make them as comfortable as they can be. So my teenagers are probably the worst. They don't want to be there for one. They have been forced to come to therapy. And so a lot of times they'll start talking because they understand that this crazy lady's gonna sit here and look at me. And yeah, like we'll just sit there and look. And that's after I have tried to get um, something out of them. So I try to again reach people where they are. So we gonna listen to music in there. We gonna listen to a lot of my kids come with Rod Wave. We listen to Rod Wave and his music. We listen to whatever it is that they're into. So I meet them where they are. If they don't want to talk to me, I'm like, okay, who's your favorite artist? Like, and then before they know it, we're talking about, okay, well, what does this song mean to you? Like, why do you like this? Like, when do you
Wow.
listen to this type of music? And so we go into what we're just having a conversation, but I've got who your favorite artist is. I got what your mood is when you're listening to this individual. I got what behaviors you have when you're listening to this
Wow.
individual. So most of the time, I can read from just asking simple questions, getting to know those individuals. There has not been many times where I have just sat there and looked at individuals, but I will, if need be. But I also incorporate activities. So I have individuals who are interested in art. So we do art therapy, we do music therapy. And then sometimes people just want to come in and talk noise, and we do that. So whatever I need to do in order to open that door so that you can feel comfortable, because again, if you look at me as a stranger, or if you look at me as your therapist, then you're probably not going to be as open as you need to be to share what you need to share. And so my job is to have a boundary understanding that I am a therapist. But most of my kids, they look at me as their homegirl or their auntie or whatever. And so that's kind of how I build that rapport.
Awesome. Now, this is a great question right here. This is TJ Jones. He's a sophomore. He's one of our football players here. And he asked, even if someone thinks their life is going great, do you still think they should check on themselves emotionally and mentally?
Yes, indeed. A lot of my clients, well, some of my clients, they're there just to have a check-in. Nothing's going on, nothing's going bad. Life is treating them how they feel like it should treat them, and they still just want to have those moments where they have check-ins. So for those individuals, it doesn't have to be a week-to-week thing. It doesn't have to be a month-to-month thing, but it just allows you to still have a connection with someone just in case life starts. Because again, we have no control over it. And so, this month may be amazing. And then in the blink of an eye, something may happen that changes that. So you already have that connection with someone. So, yeah, checking in on yourself, checking in on your emotions are really good, even when you feel like things are good. And then it's also good, too, because we are a people who have learned to mask our true feelings. So even if I feel like everything is going good, even if I feel like life is doing what it needs to do, there may be some underlying things that I may just be masking. So yeah, I'm sad, but nobody cares about that. Or I'm sad, I still got to push through. And
Wow.
so it's always good just to kind of check in on yourself and just check in on your emotions, just for you, just to make sure that you're the best version that you can be.
Wow. That's a great answer. Here's another great question. This is Javion Fields, one of our football players here. And he asked, what are your typical job duties on a regular basis? Do you have research and data review on top of the one-on-one interactions?
It depends. So, a day to day, if I'm looking at 8 sessions a day, I'm basically looking at what clients I'm gonna see that day. And so I try to rearrange my clients from my more difficult clients. I'll kind of do them like 10, 11 o'clock. Then I know I have a break. And then I do like my lighter clients in the evening. And so if they are, for instance, I was working with a child who has selective mutism. So basically, they didn't talk. Like they had moments where they just wouldn't say anything. And so that was my first time working with a client like that. And so, yeah, I had to do a lot of research just to see if there were things that I could do to assist this client, or if I needed to refer out. And so, yeah, there are times where I have to do like data analyst and look at different research if there are topics that I'm not familiar with. But for the most part, I just try to prepare in understanding what it is that my clients need in that moment. And a lot of times, even with preparation, they may come in with something off the wall where it's like, okay, well, I had this prepared, but we ain't gonna talk about this today. So even with that, like my preparation out the window anyway. So again, it goes to being able to meet people where they are.
Absolutely. And that's a great segue to this question. This is Caden Myers, another one of our football players. And he asked, in your opinion, what is the way you build trust?
Oh, that's a good one. So one way that I build trust is I lay everything out during our first session. So again, my goal is to maintain as much confidentiality that I can. A lot of times when my teenagers come in or my individuals under 18 come in, I do allow the parents to just kind of come in and um, just kind of tell me from their viewpoint what's going on. And then I ask them to leave, and then I get the real deal, what's going on with them. And so I always allow my teenagers to be themselves. So if that means that, mom says that, or your guardian says that, you have a bad attitude, and then you come in and your attitude nasty, but you know, it may be some other things that's going on. I allow you to be who you are in there. My job is not to change you, but to look at ways that you can do things differently. And so my clients curse in there. They don't curse at me, but in conversation, if it's something that they're saying and a curse word slips, I don't chastise them. I don't make them feel like,
Yeah.
oh no, y'all can't do this in my office, or you know, I'm an adult or whatever. No, talk to me like you would talk to your homeboy, just so that I can build that trust, so that if you're doing something with your homeboy that you don't supposed to be doing, I can easily say, well, you know what, you know you ain't supposed to be doing it. You know that's a better way to do that. So that's one way that I build the trust. Another way is, again, I lay everything out on the line. I let people know who I am, the type of therapist I am, because we're all different. I let them know what my style is, because again, we're all different. Um, and also, I let them know that, the only time that I bring mom in or bring any type of guardian in is if you tell me that you want to hurt yourself or hurt anybody else. And then we just got to have a different conversation, because again, my goal is to keep you safe as well. So I guess the biggest thing is just allowing people to be who they are, in all settings. I want them to be that person, their true person in my office. All
That's
gloves
awesome.
off.
This is Shavaka Page, and he asked, were you ever overwhelmed when you first started?
Um, yes, but not with the therapy. I was overwhelmed with notes because I hate notes. I hate the documentation part. But it's important because that's how I get paid. So it's kind of a super one. I have to do the notes in order to, get a check. So that's probably the only part. I guess also when I was at state hospital, I would get overwhelmed sometimes too because we dealt with a lot of abuse cases. And so if that's something that you've never experienced or that you've never seen or that you've never heard of, that can become overwhelming because you hear it day after day, hour after hour. And so um, during that time, I had to learn how to detach really quickly and not take on those emotions because I can't take on the emotions of everybody. So in the beginning, that probably was the most thing that overwhelmed me. But ultimately, it's just those notes because I hate them. And that's just my personal thing.
Yeah, and I was actually hoping somebody would ask that. That's why I didn't. But yeah, I think to me, in is my opinion, the hardest thing for me would be to separate your emotions from actually being a professional. Because let's face it, if you're a human, you're gonna feel some type of emotions. But your training and your
Right.
certifications, and you have to be like, I'm not here to be emotional. I'm here to help. So to
Yeah,
me,
it's kind of
that would be the most difficult part.
yeah, it's kind of like training that they get in the military. You learn how to mask emotions, and so I my personal emotions they are masked. Like I do that really well, and but it's also important that I have a moment where I can and take a moment to just unmask all of that because you're right, we
Yeah,
are human. And so, although we have learned how to suppress all of that, we've learned how to mask it, we've learned how to almost have a poker face in a sense. There are opportunities where we have to take in order to still be human.
absolutely. Well, I got time for two more. This is
Okay.
Mariah Harris, one of our dancers and one of our basketball players here. And she asked,
Okay.
how long did it take you to realize that working with adults wasn't so bad?
Probably after I was forced to do it for a few months. Um, you know, my biggest thing with working with adults was I just had in my mind that they don't want to change. Like adults they're stuck in their ways. They think they're right. They think they know it all. And so that was like my biggest thing going into. And like I said, my first interaction with adults was in the chemical dependency unit, so CDU, where they struggle with all types of substances. We're talking marijuana, we're talking crack cocaine, we're talking alcohol, we're talking just a lot of different things. And so within that component, I realized that a lot of the ways that behaviors that they were exhibiting was from childhood trauma or just trauma that they had experienced. So I took the knowledge that I knew about trauma working with teenagers and other individuals and just kind of related it to the adults and noticed that they had some of the same issues, and so it's easy to work with them after that.
Awesome. I got one more. This is Micaiah Luckett, one of our basketball players. And she asked, if I was looking for a therapist, what would be the most important traits for me to look for in that therapist?
Someone that you can connect with. And so I always a lot of times people don't want to do therapy because they see what it looks like on TV. There's probably an older individual who was probably does not look like you. And a lot of times you may not feel connected with that individual. And so I think it's important to look at the person outside of being a therapist. Um, like for me, I have groups, and so I'm in the community. I talk. What you see now is what you see in a therapy session, and so just making sure it's somebody that you can connect with that's gonna allow you to be who you are. Look at what their specialty is. You don't want to find a therapist who has training with only working with men and then you're their first female, or vice versa. You don't want to find a Christian based therapist that um, does not look at alternative lifestyles and you live an alternative lifestyle. So
Yeah.
just kind of doing your research as well, because we don't want to do harm. And so if I have some on my profile that does not align with your lifestyle or how you live or what you think or how you feel, then I'm probably not the best therapist for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important too, because, people that are really good therapists, I think they would rather have somebody really find a good fit for them to get better than necessarily be selfish enough to use them as a client. From what most therapists that I know, they really do have that, like, look, maybe I'm not the best fit for you, but at the end of the day, I want you to get better. So it really is that mindset. It's a servant's heart and a servant's mindset. So the good therapist will, no matter what area they're in, are going to say the same thing. But we're almost out of time, and I know you got to take care of your little one. But before we go, a few things. One, just reemphasize how important it is. Because obviously everybody's not interested in working in this field, and that's fine. That's why we have these for people to learn more about them. But one thing that everybody needs to know, no matter where they come from, what color they are, what gender they are, what religion they are, there are people out there to help you, and there is no shame in saying, look, I need to talk to somebody because I don't know how to deal with this.
Most definitely. I think the first step is accepting that there are individuals out here just to listen. The first step is also looking at being able to understand that I don't have to be strong. I don't have to put on this face. I don't have to say that I'm okay when I'm not okay. That's probably the biggest thing that I see within my office. Individuals masking. You do not ever have to mask, and so understanding that it is people out here that can help. Um, and even if you don't know what direction to go to, like we all on social media, we all have our phones 24/7. And so that's your first tool of research right there. And so even if you want me to leave my information, I can send it to you. And even if I am not the fit for you, or even if you like, I don't want to talk to that girl because she had that black scully on, and nah, that ain't who I want to talk to. That's cool. I can direct you in the direction that you may need to go to, because again, it's not about me. It's about you getting what it is that you need so that you can have the best quality of life that you could possibly have.
Absolutely. Now the last thing before we go, you're from right here in the Jackson area. You grew up as a black girl
Yeah.
right here in the same area. You're not much older than a lot of
Yeah.
these kids. I won't,
Yeah.
you've done all this at a young age. And you got a PhD in front of your name. So
Yeah.
you did a lot of things that maybe a lot of kids haven't seen. And even if they don't want to get a PhD in counseling, they can still achieve the same level of success. Everybody here is going to face obstacles, especially these young ladies, especially some of these children of immigrants, especially people that may have some disabilities, especially these black kids. So talk about those obstacles that they're going to face. But you were a perfect example of overcoming those obstacles. So what can they do now to prepare to become just as successful as someone like you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is having a plan and being in, these things that we're doing now, talking about it, understanding that, yeah, you're a black girl from Jackson, born and raised like a product of Murray High School, a product from all JPS schools. And I'm doing it out here. And so not to toot my own horn, because there are a lot of people who have been influential in my life, but just understanding that it's all about having a plan. It's all about having a plan. It's all about having a support system. And it doesn't mean that, your support system has to be family, but being able to get out there and say, okay, well, I may not want to be a therapist, but she talked a lot about resources. So maybe I can reach out and say, okay, well, I don't want to be a therapist, but since you were in the biological field, like, is there any way that you can kind of set me up or do whatever? It's all about connecting. It's all about, again, forming that support system and doing what it is that, you may want to do. And even if you don't really know what you want to do, finding you a mentor, um, so that they can kind of help guide you that way. But it can be done, again, products from Jackson, they talk bad about Jackson over here, but, there's some good things and some good people who have come out of it. And so the biggest thing is just, again, just having a plan. And if you don't have a plan, reaching out so that somebody can help with guiding you and creating that plan for you.
Yeah, and before we go, I think, and I know you mentioned this, so if anybody needs to reach out to you, that sees this later, if they need to get in touch with me to get in contact with you, nobody has to know about it but us. We will find a way. Don't worry about having to pay for it. We'll find some way where, there will be somebody and some resource for you, whether it is Dr. Jones or not. So I just want everybody to know that here in the Jackson area, if you need somebody to talk to, you're going through something, we at Madison County Schools and then Dr. Jones, we will find a way for you to seek the help you need. So do not think there are not resources here for you. And please reach out to me and we'll make that happen. So Dr. Brittany Jones, thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to do it. Talk to you soon, buddy. Take care of your little one.
All right, you too. Thanks.
See ya.